We are already halfway through 2025. Where does the time go? With that being said, I wanted to make a video today talking about the best and the worst movies I have seen so far this year. These are in no particular order. I just wanted to have fun and talk about these. So kick back, relax, comment down below. Let's get into it. Let's talk movies so far 2025. Let's start off with the worst. Wolfman. I saw this movie at an early screening back in January. Honestly, couldn't tell you a whole lot about it. This is one of the most forgettable, boring movies to come out this year. And sorry ahead of time for sounding redundant if I use that word. My main criteria for movies I do not like is boredom. I'd rather hate a movie than be bored by it. A lot of the movies on this list are going to share that subcategory because Wolfman was just an absolutely forgettable experience. Leigh Whannell, I love this guy. I loved Invisible Man. Upgrade was my favorite movie the year that came out. Him going back and doing a Universal monster take on the Wolfman after Invisible Man, I thought this was a lock. And my God, was I bored during this film. I don't remember a whole lot about it, but it's not really even about a Wolfman. It's kind of like a metaphorical symbolism for family trauma and abusive father. It is just such a slog to get through. I had numerous people walk out of this film in a free screening, so take that for what you will. This is a movie that I have no intention of ever seeing again, but easily one of the most forgettable movies so far. Best, Ballerina. I had an absolute blast with this film, and I think it is exactly what the John Wick franchise needed. I personally am somebody who is a little bit burnt out by that franchise and just these clones we are getting every single week. I think Ballerina was exactly what this franchise needed, having a spin-off that works on its own. It has a simple enough story to follow. It doesn't need to be John Wick's. We can do so much more in this world. And it just delivered everything I love in John Wick films. It's the most fun I've had since the first film. I said that in my review for that. Also, just to make note again, I've done reviews of all of these films if you want more specific details. But I thought this movie had the best action of all of the John Wick films, and it's probably my favorite John Wick. If somebody said, hey, you want to watch one of these? I'd pick Ballerina because I think it fills the itch I have with these movies. This movie has 2 or 3 of the best action scenes in the past decade. Low expectations going into it. But if there was an action movie I was going to rewatch this year, it is Ballerina by far, and it's not even close. Worst, Woman in the Yard. This was a controversial review. The comment section, some people saying you didn't get it, and it was just a very toxic place. I hated this film. This movie had some of the most unlikable, stupid, irredeemable characters ever. You spend the whole movie with this family that is completely miserable. It's a depressing film. The mother in this movie, award for worst mother of the year. I wanted the entire family to die. They were all idiots. And this movie is just a crime because, again, it's boring and you just watch a woman sit in the front yard of this family. PG-13 Blumhouse. We knew what we were getting, but the views add up, I guess. This is just one of the most bleak, depressing, zero redeeming quality films I have seen in quite a while, especially with the way this film ends. I'm not going to spoil it. If you've seen the film, you know what I'm talking about. Big controversy over what that meant. I don't think it's hard to understand at all. I think it is a bleak, depressing movie. I think the mom is an irredeemable character. And this movie just frustrated me and it almost pissed me off because in the third act, it goes so wonky and it just becomes so surreal, such a fever dream. It's impossible to tell what's going on. It's doing that thing where the director is making you do all of the legwork and fill in all of the pieces of what this means. Is it real? Is it not? I didn't care enough to decipher it. I was bored sleeping with my eyes open. This movie was absolute dog shit. Back to best, Companion. One of the first films I saw this year. I absolutely love this movie. It still holds up. I think it's even better after a second watch. There's details I didn't even get the first time. Horror comedy through and through. So if that's your jam, be sure to check this one out. It's on HBO Max right now. Go into it blind if you haven't had the little hook spoiled. I know they've been giving that away in the teaser and the thumbnail. Try to avoid that, but this is just such a fun film about this girl who is in this abusive relationship and them trying to track her down. I had so much fun with this film. I've shown this movie to 2 other people. They've both cracked up watching it. They say it's one of their favorites of the year. This is just a movie, over the course of time, I think like a decade from now, will easily be one of the more memorable horror comedies from this era. Because I think this movie is so ahead of its time with what it's talking about. I'm not going to give away again the main hook, so it's kind of hard to explain. But it's just so creative compared to so many other films in this subgenre that are tackling that material and their spin on it. This movie feels like it's completely self-aware of where we're heading as a society and the repercussions of that and the implications of us as people and comparing that to abusive relationships. It was just so smart and I thought it was funny through and through. I thought it was creative. I thought it had some of the most memorable scenes of the year so far. And after watching it a second time, it reassured that it will be in my top 5 at the end of the year, unless we get some absolute bangers. Back to worst, The Ritual, starring Dan Stevens and Al Pacino. You having trouble sleeping? Go VOD this one. This is easily one of the most forgettable, slow-paced films I have ever seen in a movie theater. It's doing its own spin on a ritual, the exorcism, whatever you want to call it. Apparently this is based on the true story of the Exorcist movie, but this movie is an absolute slog to get through. The movie is told in the form of a ritual where every night they do a little bit more and it's just kind of compounding. But you're just watching Dan Stevens stare off into the abyss aimlessly. Al Pacino's reciting poems. You have a girl laying in a bed doing the generic exorcism thing we've seen 500 times now. It's not interesting, it's not engaging, and the most offensive thing about this film, amateurish filmmaking. Every single scene of this film, even if it's just a handheld shot, is shaky cam, intense use of zoom. It's supposed to give off a documentary feel, but gives off a voyeuristic student film feel, and it just makes you woozy and annoyed because there's absolutely no reason they couldn't afford a tripod, but apparently in the name of style, we're doing that now. I hated this film. I almost fell asleep. So bad, in fact, I said in my review, I was the only person in the theater for this. I pulled out my phone. I was doom scrolling. So, I paid for a ticket. I didn't have to bother anybody else, but I could not sit through this movie. I was literally falling asleep. Back to best, Sinners. And I really enjoyed this film. I really haven't had an urge to watch it a second time, but this movie was very strange. Again, a very fever dreamish film. That is really in my wheelhouse for my favorites usually. Whole lot going on here. Exploration of Black history, the connection of music to culture. You have some stuff going on with vampires, very surreal, kind of goofy comedic moments that are kind of serious, but at the end you just laugh. Wild third act in this film. Some people compared this to From Dusk Till Dawn. I do not agree. I think there are elements of that. I think they are a wildly different film. And even though I do have some issues with this, I don't think this is anywhere near what people are saying one of the best films, if not the best horror film ever made. Like, I'm not even close to getting there. It is a very strong film, and I really like the creative swings it takes. And the acting was great as well. I have absolutely no idea how they managed to make Michael B. Jordan hand himself a cigarette and make it look like it was actually the same guy. Some of the most impressive green screen work I've ever seen. A little bit slow getting to the second half, but this was just a fun film. Again, one of the more memorable movies of the year because in a world where we get so many derivative films, their sequels and prequels, this was just an original horror film that I think will stand the test of time. And as I've already said, is already a lot of people's favorite. So if you have not seen Sinners, go check it out. Back to worst, Hell of a Summer, or as I call it, Hell of a Bummer. Kind of a play on Friday the 13th going off the summer camp horror comedy, except it fails in every regard. It's not a slasher because every single kill is off screen. The killer has an absolutely lame mask, and the reveal is one of the worst ever. And this is one of the most painfully unfunny movie experiences I have ever had. It has been quite a while since I sat in the movie theater and felt secondhand embarrassment like I did with this film. If I remember correctly, I did enjoy the opening scene of this film, and I thought it was by far the highlight, and I thought it was just a strong slasher moment. But aside from that, there was not a single scene in this film I found to be creative or funny. I mean, this is cringe humor. Like, I think you should leave level cringe, but not in a good way. I felt embarrassed watching this, watching them try to tell these jokes and pawn it off like they were funny, just thinking, who wrote this? Like 12-year-old humor, but injected into a slasher. Just an absolute mess of a film. I know some people had a better time with this, but I got zero redeeming qualities out of this because as a horror fan, it didn't work. Comedies, I'm a tough audience and I thought the jokes were just miserably bad. And then the reveal is terrible. So there's just absolutely no reason I would even recommend this movie to anybody. So this one's easily going to be in the bottom 5. I hated this film. Back to best, Hard Eyes. Another movie I know a lot of people are kind of having issues with and they just didn't like the tonal thing behind what this movie is. But in my opinion, what this movie ended up being is a lot better than what I expected because going into it, I expected it to be another My Bloody Valentine, and I'm actually really happy it's not. I don't really know if there's another horror film like this. This movie is more of a Lifetime romantic comedy with 20% horror than it is an actual horror comedy slasher. And I love that. Call me a hopeless romantic, call me a sucker for these type of stories. I thought the chemistry between these leads was hilarious and awesome. I love the love angle of this, like the central message behind the movie, as corny as it is. And while the kills and the slasher element aren't my favorite by any means, I do think this movie is uniquely memorable for all the reasons I just said. I think if you want a movie you can watch with a date or your girlfriend or your wife, this is like the perfect version of that. So it fills that niche because it is just so different. This is a movie I've seen 3 times now, 2 times since I saw it in the theaters. And both of the groups I saw this with absolutely loved it. Again, I know on Twitter and stuff, people are kind of ripping this one. They don't like the reveal. The first time I saw the reveal, I thought it was kind of weak. But this movie also has 2 or 3 of my favorite comedic moments of the year so far. I described in my review, this movie is as if it was ripped from my brain. This is my type of comedy, this stupid, dry humor. And when it comes down to it, this is just a movie that I always find myself laughing and having a good time and leaving happy. So that's what movies are all about, in my opinion. I find this movie to be very entertaining and probably one of the most fun movies of the year so far. Worst presence. I absolutely dumped on this film. I don't even know how to describe it. It's like a haunted house ghost story, but it's told from a voyeuristic perspective of the ghost. And some people thought this movie was incredibly profound, especially the ending. I thought this movie was insufferable. It was boring. I got woozy because I get motion sickness. They use shaky cam. This guy is walking around the house. And the crime to this film is the story was just not interesting to me whatsoever. You're just watching this family as this guy walks around the house as if he was a ghost. It reminded me of that movie with Casey Affleck a couple of years ago, A Ghost Story, except this was from the perspective of the ghost with the bedsheet. You're just watching this family hang out and have these very dull conversations. You don't really care about any of these characters. It's filmed with a nice camera, but the way they choose to film it, again, made me nauseous, and it was just annoying to just have this guy walking around sitting in the closet, all up into a reveal that did absolutely nothing for me, and it just felt like I wasted 90 minutes of my life watching this stupid ghost walk around. So if this is something you find very profound or you really love the artisticness of the way this was filmed, you maybe had a decent time with this. For me, I thought this was just an insufferable experience because I got nothing out of the payoff. It didn't feel like it added anything. When I hear that premise of a ghost haunting a house, I'm going to get some thrills or some scares. That's not the type of movie this is. It's like a melodramatic drama. Again, maybe it's a problem with my expectations, but not what I signed up for. So I took an absolute shit on this film in my review. A lot of people agreed. Some people said, oh, you just don't get it, which seems to be the buzzword nowadays. If somebody doesn't agree, they just question your movie intelligence, whether or not you understand the profoundness of such a pile of garbage. But yeah, I hated this film. It's on Hulu now. If you want to suffer for 90 minutes, I do not recommend it. Finishing off with best, Final Destination Bloodlines. I really enjoyed this movie the first time I watched it. I went and saw it in theaters a second time with a friend who was nagging me, and I really liked it the second time. So much so, in fact, I think I said in my review for that one as well. This is easily my favorite Final Destination now. More so than just a Final Destination movie, I just think this is a very good horror movie. Really strong characters. You have Eric, the guy with the nose piercing, one of the best, if not the best characters in this franchise. And because this movie is focused around a singular family, it gives this movie the strongest characters of all the Final Destinations. This movie has an absolutely gnarly opening, the second best in the franchise behind the log truck, but it's still really good. And it has 2 or 3 absolutely awesome kills. What I really enjoyed about this film is it's funny, good characters, and it's very self-aware. It's misleading with how they kill. In all of these movies, death acts like a giant Rube Goldberg machine. It shows up and this very elaborate, complicated death kills off somebody. In this movie, it feels like they are very self-aware, that we have evolved as an audience, so they are misleading us. Up until the point, I really didn't see 2 or 3 of these deaths coming at all, including the hospital death, which in my opinion is probably one of, if not the best death in this franchise now. So I had a blast with this film. I think it is filmed incredibly well. The only negative I have, honestly, is I think the very end of the movie is a little bit rushed, and the CGI is pretty bad. This movie is very CGI heavy. And there's a couple scenes where it looks very low budget or just not that good. Aside from that, if you are a horror fan and you have somehow not checked out Final Destination Bloodlines due to the sequel prequel thing, trust me on this one, it's one of the best sequels and it's one of the best horror movies this year by far. There you have it. Those are some of my best and worst of the year so far. Tried to cut this list down. I could have done like 15 of both, but what's the fun in that? We'll save that for the end of the year. So as always, like, subscribe, comment, join me down below. It helps support the channel. Comment down below. Let me know what your best and worst of the year so far. Do you agree with mine? What movies did I not get around to seeing you recommend? All of that. I love talking in the comments with you, but I will see you in the next review. Peace.